You don't need to be a professional artist to create something beautiful. You just need permission to play. POSCA markers are the ultimate tool for fearless art journaling, and today we're going to dive into why. So if you are curious about these markers and how they work alone and with other art supplies, this video is for you. We are going to jump in and get started, and I hope you join me. When I first bought POSCA markers, it was just to see how they worked on top of my mixed media art. So I stuck to just like a 4-pack with gold, silver, black, and white. And what I quickly learned is that they were super opaque, so you could cover up any mistakes and it would look really, really good. Or you can add little details, which I really liked. So when you first get these markers, they are water-based markers and they dry to a matte finish. But when you first get them, you could see that this is what they look like. You have to activate the markers so that the ink flows down, or that the paint flows down, because it's not ink, it's water-based paint, acrylic paint, water-based acrylic paint. So you could see these tips here, and in order to get these to work, you have to press down on them. So let's flip this over. You have to press down and sort of pump the marker. And if I want, I can shake it. There's a little ball inside these markers to help mix up the paint. And you just press and hold until the paint starts flowing down. Use it on any any paper. This is watercolor paper that I'm putting it on right now. Once you've pumped the markers and activated them, the paint will flow freely. There are those balls inside, so you could shake it to activate it, but this one had already been activated and you can see the paint flowing out easily. I have 2 different sizes. They're both the pump action. I mean, I think all of the POSCA markers require you to pump them to activate them. But the size of the nibs is a little bit, one is smaller than the other. So you can see that here. I think there's even a larger size. Once you activate them, the paint comes out smoothly and there's no odor. They're odorless markers. And I do like the fact that they're super opaque so that you can draw on top of something you already drew to fix your mistakes. Now, I don't have all the colors of these POSCA markers, so I'm going to use some other supplies. I have these Stabilo woody crayons, and I'm just going to color in her hair. But the thing about the markers are they can cover up your line art better. Like if you made a mistake, you can cover it up. I don't have skin tones either, so I'm one to use mixed media. I might use some other acrylic markers to paint her face, but then I'm going to go over it with these so you can see how they work. Same with her jacket. And I use mixed media regularly, so I'm going to add some paint colors to this, and then we're going to draw on top of it, add some details with the POSCA markers to see how they work. For the skin tone, I'm using the Artex markers that I have. These are acrylic Artex markers. These ones don't require any pumping. These are fine as well, but today I'm just exploring the POSCA markers. Both have a matte finish when they're completed. I just have way more Artex markers than I do the POSCA markers. And for me personally, it's just fun to play with my art supplies and see what I can do. This is a Talon's Art Creative Sketchbook, if you're wondering what the sketchbook is. I also wanted to mention that if you're interested in drawing faces, I do have an ebook on how to draw faces. I'll leave a link in the comment section for that as well. So she's kind of coming together. Now that I kind of have this mapped out, I'm going to do the cat white because I have a nice white POSCA marker, and I'm going to color her cheeks and add some highlights. So let's see if I'll probably be able to zoom in, but you can see I can just tap in to put the whites of her eye in and the tip of her nose, just adding some highlights. And you can see it's nice and thick and it goes over that pen mark really well. So far, so good. Thing I really enjoy is the gold colored Posca marker. It's really nice and shiny. I think this is what got me really into it, was how well this paint comes out and how shiny it actually is. Let's see, maybe we can add like a little something around her head here so you could just sort of see. It's almost like you can add details on top of your artwork if you wanted to, and it just covers it so well. I have some green here. Maybe I could draw like some leaves coming out on the side. There we go. I should do some flowers. I'm not sure those really look like leaves, but just trying to give you the idea that you can add mark making on top of your artwork. And I just really like the way that it layers on top of, this is acrylic ink I'm drawing on top of, but you can add details right on top of your artwork. That's that. So this is mixed media paper and this is watercolor paper. Let's check out and see if I can sort of draw on top of some of these. So there's this lady that I did. Let's see if we can add some of the Posca marker on top and how that would look. If I remember correctly, this was done with all sorts of different art supplies, including tempera paint sticks, but let's see if we can add some details to this bird. And you can kind of just see, this mixed media paper actually is probably the best for these markers. I found the Talons Art Creative, it typically will pill, but I find that with all my art supplies, but I still love the Talons Art Creative. I'll use it anyway. But this mixed media paper is not going to pill, so we can get a better sense of how these markers cover up old artwork. And maybe I'll add a pop of red to her lips. And make it stand out a bit. You can see how it really pops. And let's get some gold in there. Maybe I'll put some gold on the birds. Sometimes it's fun to go over old artwork with new art supplies and see how it looks and how it performs on different paper. I also have a whole video series on how to create these zines, and I think I had 5 or 6 videos. It was sort of like an everyday thing where we did a different zine every day. Okay, I've got another one. This lady here, this face here, maybe I'll add little gold here and on the cat. This is great because I'm actually using, I know that this artwork is dry. Sometimes I try and I'll layer on top of wet artwork and it doesn't always work, but I really love how that gold looks. Let's get those lips in there. Oops. And I think this has been a series, this zine was like a series of acrylic markers. So POSCA is water-based acrylic marker. It's going to work really well on top of other acrylic markers. So I want to see how it works. It also did really well on top of the acrylic ink, but let's have a look at some of my other artwork and see what we can do on top of that. When it comes to the size of these markers, my preference is the larger size, just because I work with mixed media. If you're drawing or want to do mark making, you can use the smaller ones. When I actually bought these, I thought they were the bigger ones, and then I got home and I was like, oh no, they're not. You could see they're smaller. So for this mixed media piece, which is what I usually use as mixed media, I really liked the larger size marker to do these little dots with. And I was hoping to get more. And you know, you can, I don't know, I like the way these larger ones can fill in spots or color things in versus the smaller ones, which I got and I don't regret getting them, but I think I would stick with the larger ones. But if you're just drawing, then I think the smaller nib would work. Here is the black one. And you could see how nice that line is. And I like to smudge it, so I'm just smudging it as I go. I don't like perfect lines. But look how, oh, I just love it. I also have a video on how to draw sharks, so I will include a link in the description of that as well. When it comes to the paper for these POSCA markers, because they're acrylic markers and they're a liquid, it makes sense that they would work better on something like mixed media paper or paper that can handle a liquid versus just a regular sketchbook, simply because it will cause the paper to pill. But that is the same for any acrylic marker. It's going to cause the paper to pill. One of the things I say is, like, you need to know what art supply that you're using. So I'm using a really light touch here, but the paper, if I put too much on it, it will pill because it's going to get wet. And you can also see if you had a bigger marker, you could easily color in the cheek without a tiny nib. So I'm probably going to explore the larger POSCA markers versus these smaller ones. This was just a user error on my part for buying the tiny one. But again, like, let's look at this big, let's look at the giant gold one. So I've got the giant gold one. Look how well that, I just feel like it flows really well and it pops.